Hello everybody and welcome to Wolf Coding. Today I'm going to be showing off my first big project, Project Spots. What it is it's basically a one-person social media platform as of right now. In the future I'd love to add more, like a login page, and make it more than just one person. But as of now, this is all that I have done and learned from it. So I'm just going to show off a few of the things that it does and that this project teaches. It teaches a little bit more about how to have modals with forms inside with placeholders, and you're able to add different information. So we're just going to say whatever. We're just going to put something in here, and it's going to, when we click save, it's going to have a saving part. I'm just going to change it back just because OCD and kind of for funsies. But we're also able to add new photos into the data at the server by sending it through the same API, and we're able to add likes, and we're able to delete it. But I'm just going to showcase that we can reload the page, and these likes and these new photos stay. We're able to delete photos and they stay deleted, and it's super awesome. It's an excellent starting project, and like I said, it walks over all of those things. So I'm just going to jump into the code real quick and show you a little bit of how I did it. So we're going to jump right over into the index.html really fast, and I wrote all of this in vanilla HTML first. I didn't have any of like the require weird stuff for the dynamic photos, and this is what we use for sending those photos through webkit instead of just having it directly in the page. And because we're using webkit, we're not actually able to use the live server. So if I try to open up a live server on VS Code, then it ends up looking like this. It just doesn't have any of the CSS, any of the JavaScript, or anything of the sort, because it's only connected through WebKit. And we actually only linked WebKit to, or the CSS directly into the JavaScript. And so when we use WebKit, then the JavaScript is going to be directly compiled and pulled right into the file as well. And so it just compacts everything down into one little thing. And it's really nice. And we use npm run dev to actually do that, actually see the project's code in and of itself. So I just figured I would show each of these parts. At the top, it kind of just has the main header with the spots logo, and then it has the avatar, or the profile picture, and then the writing in itself is right here. And as well as below that, we have all of the buttons working for all of the modals. So we have an edit profile modal right here. We have an edit avatar modal right here. New post modal right here. And so you can write that HTML, and then you can hide it or use visibility hidden, and it just kind of like puts it in the background. It's not usable while it's back there. But it's really nice to be able to make your page a little bit more interactive, pulling it out into the open using that CSS. And so I'm not going to show any of the CSS. It's not really all that important, but we do use media queries to be able to change the size of the project on like phones or whatnot. So I'm just going to show you what it would look like on a smaller screen. So if we go down to a smaller size, then it kind of pulls it all the way down into super small. And then when we open these modals, they look like this, making it a little bit more interactive, and you can even click on the photos themselves to see them. So yeah, very awesome. It uses interactive with the CSS. So jumping back over to the code itself, we're going to just run over basically what I learned about APIs. And so when we're using an API, we use a fetch request, and we have made it so it's just a little bit shorter using this request method. So when we request something, we're going to use it. We're going to send it a URL, and what that's doing is it's going to that URL, and then it's going to give it that option. And those options tell it if it's a post request, if it's a patch request, if it's a get or a delete, whatnot. And then after that, we're going to say then this check response. The check response basically just says if the response works, then return the response.json, and that return.response.json is going to give you the information that you need to basically use the card. And so the cards example on the other page, this card has a few pieces of information in it, and we can actually use that information by, we're just going to load a new one so that I can see it. But we're going to load a new one. We can say we're going to go directly to the network. We can say the fetch requests, and we can click on cards, and we can see that this is what the card actually looks like from the server. It has an is liked, an ID, a name, a link, and an owner, and created at this time. And so that's really special because we can use all of this that we need to, and this if we want to be able to make it more responsive. And I'm assuming this owner would actually be able to help you open it just for specific people. Really cool, really awesome. So jumping back over to the code, when we are opening all of the stuff, we use get initial cards, and this is going to the base URL of the API. When we call the API, we just set the base URL, and then we say /cards to get to those cards. And we give it its basic headers, which over here, if I just search API real quick, it'll come right up. So let's go to the top. All right, API base URL right there. Boom. Our headers, we use authorization, and then content type just to make it easier on ourselves so we don't have to put it over here later within certain parts of it. Then we have other ones, get user info, post card, delete card, all doing exactly what they say. Is liked change, so we can change to the liked, and we use one of these. I don't actually remember exactly what they're called, but it's basically an if then statement. If is liked is true, then we're going to put the liked, and if it's false, then we're going to delete the like. Very awesome way of coding. I need to remember what this is called, but I really like them. They're really helpful. And then, so now that we've talked a little bit about the API, we're also going to show you the helpers that we used. And so that saving, when we click the button and it says saving or deleting instead, then we're just going to show a little bit about that. So we wrote a handle submit request or handle submit function, and it takes a request to the API, and then it also takes the event. And so the event, and then it also has the default text is loading text is saving. So if you don't put anything in, then that's what it's going to be. So we take the event and we prevent default, preventing the page from reloading. And we go all over the submitter, and we take that submitter and we change its, we grab its initial text and we set it to the submit button.text content. And so that's just saving that information for later, so we can set it back after we call set button text loading. So this little function right here takes that button, and takes if it's is loading true or false, and if it's true, then we're going to set the button text content to loading text. If it's false, then we're going to set it back to its default text. And that's really helpful just for changing it back and forth really easy without having lots of repeating code, because as you can see on the actual project, we had many modals. We had 1, 2, and then 3, and then 4. And yeah. So we're going to go back to the code, and we're going to just explain this. Event target reset, just resetting the whatever we have within the submitter. So if we submit some of this information, it's going, when we reopen it, it's not going to have anything. It's going to use whatever placeholders we have already written inside of it. So then it finally sets it back to what it was before, and then we export whatever it is, or these two, to the index.js file. And so within that file, we are grabbing them right there. And so that just explains basically how we're doing it. And then this is just a whole bunch of what we're grabbing throughout it. This is how you grab stuff in JavaScript. We set it to a constant, and we use document.query selector, and then we select it by either its class, like this, with a period, or its ID with a hashtag. And so we just have a whole bunch of grabbing stuff. We set event listeners. Oops, not right here, I guess. We're still just grabbing stuff. This is a global variable. We just say let selected card and selected card ID just to kind of help out to be able to grab the card, send it to the API, which will then grab the actual card. Then we have a handle function or handle escape function. So whenever we click the escape button, it's letting us out of the opened modal. And we also have click outside. So if we're clicking something outside of the target, then we're going to close the modal. Then we have the open modal functions, which, because like I said earlier, we have 4 of them, so we better have multiple ways to open them and close them. We don't want to be repeating all of that code. And yeah, this is just the delete stuff. I can just kind of scroll through so you can see it's all pretty basic. Buttons to close it, and then grabbing the submitters, and then we have the actual, this is the stuff right here that's important, right? And so we're going to grab the value of whatever we write down, and we're going to reset the validation. And the validation, I forgot that we added that. It's been a while. It's just for the forms. So if we have the forms and they're not writing down exactly what they need to be writing down, then we're not writing down a fake URL, or you just know whether it's a URL, and it'll tell you that you need to be writing a URL within the forms. Okay, and then right here we have, this is just an example. I'm going to go over just this one, and then I basically reused this code for most of the modals. And so we made a function saying request edit profile, and then we set that function to what's being triggered when we add a submit to the edit profile form. And so when it is, we go to edit user info, we pass it the info that we want it to be using within the API request, if you remember that, and it's going to set it to that because we are using API edit user info. So if we go over here, edit user info, it's taking the normal URL, adding users./me, going to it, and then if we pull it out, then it's going to pull out pretty much the name and the description of that, which, if you remember on the other part, it's Jake Sully, driver avatar on Pandora. And then, just like we talked about, it handles the submit saving down here. That's what changes like the talking or whatnot. And yeah, we redid that for basically all of them, and it also closes out the modal as well. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'm going to put the code on my GitHub link within the actual video. And thank you for coming and looking at my project, and I hope you guys have a great day. Goodbye.